Hello, everybody. It's Joe from the Middle Ground, Mike. But today we got a great guest here in Portland. 2025. They like to label things, but federal troops in, especially when the local government is not requesting it. This is not the 2020 you saw on CNN. This is something sharper from somebody who lived on the ground. How are you doing today, Luis?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me today.
But yeah, thank you for coming on. Give everybody a little bit about who you are.
Thank you. Hey, I will. My name is Luis Enrique Marquez. I am from Portland, Oregon. I'm an anti-fascist activist, and I wrote a book entitled Antifascist, a memoir of the Portland Uprising, 2016-2020. So it starts literally with Herr Trump's election and it ends with Herr Biden's election. And it is about the trials and tribulations that I went through, but really it's about what my town went through. That for 4 years we were invaded by hate groups, culminating in the federal government and how we made them go home.
Yeah, I mean that's everybody I would say had seen on TV, at least from this side of the world over here. It looked like a very challenging situation. I mean, was it as violent as the national media tried to paint it out to be? Like just in general, the whole situation.
There were times when it was scary to be out on the streets, but it's really interesting to note that the fear came from one side. The violence came from one side. Okay. There were days that I went out wearing what I'm wearing. I was shot at by men in body armor with guns, maced, with helmets, with drones, with snipers, with laser pointers, with tear gas. This is one of my memories that they threw at me way back when, and I used it as a paperweight.
Jeez.
So we were victims of federal overreach, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I mean that's the federal government, entering a city, especially without the city requesting it. The city government saying, "Hey, things are out of control. We can't handle it." To me is it's a slippery slope. You do open the door to pretty much anything, really. I mean, the door just becomes wide open, and the problem from per se my perspective is in America, everybody's okay when it's their side. And that's how it's become. And it's not, it's we've went away from I don't even have to agree with you, but I'm gonna protect your right to do what you do. And that's gone away. And now it's left versus right. If I'm right, I'm okay with it. If I'm left, I'm okay with it, as long as it's my side. Not particularly you, but
Well, I mean, I think yes and no, but we saw this way back when that we saw that really free speech only means one thing. And unfortunately, the right wants to use free speech to yell hurtful slurs and derogatory things. And yet that they want empathy. We can see this with what happened with Charlie Kirk. Okay. I made a comedic video. I thought it was pretty funny. I received 2,000 death threats from one comedic video that the right wanted empathy for Charlie Kirk, but yet provides no empathy for the member of Congress in Minnesota who was brutally murdered, right? We see that they want free speech for them, and they don't even understand the concept of free speech, that free speech wasn't designated to say whatever racial thing you wanted to say. It was enacted so we could criticize our government safely, right? And we can see that the right gets upset when they're shown that there are consequences for free speech. Let me be very clear. We have free speech, absolutely. Free speech does not guarantee you a platform, right? No one has the right to hear whatever you want to say. That's just not this thing. And furthermore, there are consequences to your speech. I promise you, you call me a racial slur, I care not who you are. You will spit teeth out, or I will die trying,
yeah, I mean
right?
that's
And so we see that's the right. The right wants free speech. They want to say every hurtful thing under the sun. They want to terrorize people, yet they want no consequences from that. And that's just not how it's going to happen.
yeah, yeah, violence is, I mean, for me personally, it's generally not something that I do. I'm not, some people that's, that's what you got to do. But, obviously your situation is a lot different than mine. And that's I think that plays a huge factor into a lot of this stuff, and trust me, I've been around a lot of people who, you know, things get crazy. They've definitely said some things where people that I've known for years I would never guess would say some of those type of things. And I'm just going, I've known you for 10 years and I've never heard something like that come out of your mouth. Like, and it's just left me flabbergasted. And I'm like, well, I'm about to get the hell kicked out of me. And I don't even think like that. Like, and
Yeah, I think it needs to be nuanced, right?
yeah.
Like justice is nuanced. It's not this broad sword. Um, you convict the guilty person, not the guilty person's associates, right? Unless they are guilty of the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I would go on to say that I do not know one person, not one, who's ever used violence offensively. Never once.
Yeah. No, I don't generally know of any individuals that I know on either side that as personal individuals that I know for myself. I'm not saying like on the bigger stage, right? I'm not
Right,
talking
right,
about those
right.
folks.
Right. No, I would say, yeah, and I mean, I would say I've seen some of these bigger folks. I would see names like Joe Biggs partake in violence. I've seen people like Enrique partake in violence. I've seen people like Tiny Toes partake in violence. Alan, I can't think of his last name off the top of Sweeney
Mhm.
partake in violence. So I mean, yeah, violence is bad. Who wants to hurt anybody?
Right.
The right does though. The right rebels in violence. Fascists enjoy violence. It's part of their thing. They're all trying to be alpha dogs.
And for me, I get where the anti-fascist part comes in when describing certain things that the right are doing. I'm for a lot of my principles, they're center, but lean that way to a degree depending on the issue. A lot of issues I'm actually very, very liberal on that most people on the right would probably throw me off a building for. Just kidding, but
I imagine where I stand, huh?
it's being of German heritage, right? I guess I look at fascism maybe from a little bit of a different point of view. The right, there is a lot of people on the right that are doing a lot of things that I definitely don't agree with. Some I yes, some no, but I don't see them out there. For me, when I look at fascism, I look at okay, fascism was really kind of brought about with Mussolini and Hitler. Oh, that was kind of like when it became a thing. I mean, it was existed before that, but nobody ever really called it that. The genocide, things like that were like the key things. We're like rounding people up, putting people into camps. And like, what a lot of Americans don't realize is we did similar things here in the United States during that period. We just hit it better and we didn't talk about it. And we didn't kill people off like they had done over there. Well, during that time period, I should say. It's, I guess currently, I don't see that from my end, right? And this is why I'm just putting it out there, right? I don't see that
Well,
as happening. You know what I mean?
you live
Like,
in a country that has racial laws that are akin to 1930s Nazi Germany. It is now legal to stop, question, and detain people based on their skin color, the language that they speak in public, their accent, and their cultural background. So I would say for sure that you live in a fascist state. The very first things fascist governments do are build prisons. The very first thing this government did was build Alligator Alcatraz. And we have 1,000 missing people from Alligator Alcatraz. It's my personal belief that those people got helicopter rides. I believe the government terminated them. So we have clear signs of fascism. We see the president targeting his political enemies. We see that's another sign of fascism. We see militarized troops on our city streets. Hell, in my city, we're on the verge of seeing the Insurrection Act play out,
right,
right? Which is a suspension of civil liberties, a suspension of due process, a suspension of habeas corpus, and militarized troops on our streets looking at us, citizens, as criminals, as conquered people. So I would contend, sir, that we are already not in the early stages, but in the throes of fascism.
to personally, I want to say like quote unquote counter that, right? The going after political enemies. I don't know if you had seen the Joe Rogan when right after Trump got elected. So obviously, all the people in tech were like, okay, well now we can just say what we want and come out. Well, the Biden administration was targeting people who didn't agree with them on COVID. and they would threaten, Facebook and all these social media companies with, regulatory threats, financial, if they didn't essentially cancel their accounts, block them, whatever they wanted to do, and so and this is where I'm coming from with it, right? I don't agree when that happened, and I definitely don't agree with what's happening now.
So let me be clear. I'm an anti-fascist.
Right.
I'm not a liberal.
No,
I'm
no,
no, wait. So I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a progressive, right? I'm an anti-fascist. So I look at Biden as a racist. This was a man who didn't want to bust his children into the quote jungle.
yes.
Okay. I look at the Democrats as complicit as the Republicans have been. They have both created an education to prison pipeline of my people. I'm indigenous. So when you say that this government hasn't killed people like Nazi Germany, my people, the indigenous people of North and South America, have been wiped out by multiple governments.
I was more trying to refer to currently is what I was going after.
Well, still currently, we have a concentration camp that a judge shut down, otherwise would still be open. We have prisoners of said concentration camp that are missing and presumed to be dead at the hands of this government. We have race laws where people of my complexion, my ethnicity, my culture, regardless, can be stopped and detained indefinitely. We see in Chicago that 4 weeks ago, it's the video that's now just getting out of a priest being shot in the head. A priest who is standing on city property, not federal property. We know for a fact that riot control officers are taught to shoot at the ground. This is a weapon of war. Okay. We see in Portland that when we look at the news media that we see red gas, green gas, yellow gas. None of it's good. We see in Portland that, ICE officials are allowing right-wing media up onto the building and in the building and not letting mainstream media, let alone left-wing media, into the building. We see that the Department of Justice, there was a fight that broke out between, I believe, two people and a right-winger journalist from DC. And in those situations, the cops come in generally and they take everybody. They don't care. They see a scuffle, they take everybody. A cool down period. Agree with it or not. That's what happens. And now the DOJ is going to investigate the city of Portland Police Bureau for political biasness, a police bureau that has escorted right-wingers, a police bureau that has left right-wing snipers on parking flat structures with their sniper rifles trained down at us. I mean,
Right.
they're wacky, to say the least. And so I say, sir, that we do live in a fascist state now, right?
Right.
That what we're seeing now is a consolidation of said powers. In Portland, if we don't see the National Guard, we're going to see the Insurrection Act.
Yeah, just to be fair, I'm against the National Guard going in there. Am I okay with, maybe certain things that they're claiming that are happening? Regardless, no, I'm not okay with that either. I believe if a city, if the city mayor or if the governor, depending, how each state's structured, if they say, hey, we need ABC, okay, that's when the federal government should step in. Because I think that infringes upon, our individual rights, and it's a slippery slope, right? They do it for that. What's them to say next week they want to go after everybody that's over the age of 50 years old?
Denver, Colorado has more rapes and more murders than Portland, Oregon.
Wow, that
Why
I
are
did not know.
they not getting feds? Okay. This area that Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, and the whole country is concerned with is roughly a half a city square block. It's not even really a full block, right? Because at the end of the street, there is a huge parking lot that unloads into the spaghetti factory. Right next to the ICE facility is a preschool. So all of that smoke that you see every night is drifting into a preschool right next to it and leaving its filter on the toys in the playground.
Jeez.
That neighborhood is a residential neighborhood. So ICE is loading up all of those residents with chemicals. I had a heart attack in 2021, and I believe that the effects of that were due to the feds gassing us in 2020.
I mean, chemicals definitely can contribute to that. There's no denying that. I mean, the heck, that's one thing RFK talks about all the time, chemicals contributing to problems.
I mean, that nutcase, right? Like, fuck, don't even get me started. And this is what I'm saying. Like, there is one side in this case that is in this fight that is all encompassing and it is truly for Americans. Okay. And there is one side who is for this small group of wealthy white people. And like that has now sold part of our country, however big, however small, to the Qataris to build an Air Force base. A country that's in line with those that perpetrated 9/11 on us.
Yeah,
An Air Force base with planes that could probably fly hundreds, if not thousands of miles to bomb things,
that's just I don't even know how
right?
to respond to that praise because it's just so crazy.
We see a president who has shut down the government over over Medicare because he doesn't want Americans to get free Medicare, free medicine. He wants to charge them along with Pfizer, right? Because it's better for him to make some money on the side. And how is that even legal that our president can run a fucking pharmacy? Excuse my language. So we see every day that we are being sold out. We saw Chrissy Nome at the Antifa roundtable claim to have the founder of Antifa's girlfriend. So they captured a vampire? Because first of all, Antifa is there are no groups that I know of called Antifa. Not one. There are plenty of anti-fascist activists, but anti-fascism is an idea, right? Kind of like, oh, I don't know, say Christianity. It's an idea. And going back over 100 years. So if you got the founder's girlfriend, did you capture a vampire?
Touche.
Okay. I have pictures of the right-wing commentator who spoke to President Trump. Katie Davenport. Katie has claimed to have a black eye. Okay. And if you don't mind, this is a picture of Katie leaving the White House. Okay. With Andy No, you can see that they've left the White House because of her certificate. Okay. And I'm going to hold on here. Let me zoom in. Katie supposedly got a black eye from somebody who supposedly entitled themselves Antifa. I don't see a black eye there. Okay. But yet, mere minutes before, oh no, it's this way. Mere minutes before, she's speaking to the president
Huh, jeez.
with a doctored eye. So these
Yes.
people that believe this bullshit, excuse my French again, that there's some group named Antifa. I just showed you how this woman doctored her eye to go to the president and talk about a big, bad, mythical boogeyman that does not exist, that he is going to use as a pretext to crack down on everyday working Americans.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely the slippery slope I feel like we're on for sure.
This president wanted to applaud Apple building a factory in America. We didn't ask any questions. Who's going to staff that factory? Is Apple going to hire Americans who need jobs at a decent rate of pay? Union jobs that are going to help live our lives? Or is it going to be a factory of robots that run 24/7, that don't have health insurance costs, that don't have overtime costs?
Fair enough. I mean, from my perspective, I'm totally for any company building a factory here. To be fair, I'm from Detroit. I've seen what it's like to see your country gutted. That's and the one thing where I can say about a gajillion percent that I do stand with the president on, where I know not everybody does, is the tariffs on China. And I'll say this in particular why. Do I know that it can possibly raise prices in certain areas with certain things? Yes. But I've also seen the cost of going, well, we don't want to pay a higher price, so we do nothing at all in the end. And then they just go, well, we're just going to take everything overseas. See you later. And this is the first time in my lifetime where they've actually, and I'm not saying it's like, oh, because it's Trump. I'm saying where our government has actually said, okay, hey, whoa, it's gone too far, time out. we're willing to bite the
I
bullet.
hear you, but it was Americans that sold us out.
Mhm.
It was the billionaire class. I come
Yeah,
from Nike. Every Nike is goddamn made in China. That's fine, right? But they could have had factories here in America,
yeah. No,
right?
it's
Okay.
our own rich sold us out.
There is nothing that I support more than the working class because the working class is the working class around the world, wherever we are. And we are tasked with getting very little while the boss is getting a lot. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not a communist by far at all. Any political ideology that has gulags, secret police, re education camps, I'm not a fan of, period. I believe in freedom, right? Now, that's freedom for everybody. You want to believe in whatever you want to believe in? Cool. You want to be trans? You're not hurting anybody. You have every right to live your life how you want to live your life, work, live wherever you want. Nobody has the right to harass you across the board. And again, there's one side who wants to narrow the scope, narrow it and narrow it until the only people with rights, sir, are people that look like you, white, white men,
No, I can totally understand where you're coming from on that. I mean,
right?
it's
So, so I have respect for old school Republicans, right? And I don't have respect for fascists. I don't have respect for racists, which is what the MAGAs are. Period. Okay. They are not even capitalists. Because at the end of the day, if they were capitalists, they would be pro undocumented people because those are the people that they hire. And those are the people whose insurance they don't have to pay. And those are the people who they can give less wages to, therefore increasing their bottom dollar. So they're not even capitalists, these megas, right? But old school Republicans, yes, much respect for. Do I have probably, to be honest with you, more respect for an old school Republican than I have an old school Democrat. Right? As an anti-fascist, it is my job to see the hypocrisy on both sides and not buy into one side. And as I've said before, we can never forget that the Clintons called youth of color super predators. We can never forget that Joe Biden did not want to bus his son into the jungle. We cannot forgive these words, and we cannot forgive a whole system that took tribal people away from their loved ones, right?
yeah. I mean, what happened there was it was wrong.
And we can address that like, hey, we talked a little bit before we came on air, and I made the point that like immigrants come normally. Immigrants come quote unquote the right way. That's what the word means. What the whole conversation is should be centered around is refugees. Now, why are these people refugees? Why are they fleeing their country? Why are they walking thousands of miles with no shoes? Really? To come steal your job? No. It's because we have supported terrorism abroad, especially in Latin America. We started the School of the Americas, a school to facilitate, train dictators. Manuel Noriega was one of the most famous graduates from there. Why can't the Perons, I can't think of their name right now, in Argentina, another graduate from there, right? So they're coming here because we supported terrorism in their land. And as the people that have supported the terrorism in their land, I believe we have a responsibility to them.
I can agree with bringing some refugees in. I'm not against bringing anybody in per se, but I do think it needs to be controlled. We need to know who comes across the border. We need to be like, okay, hey, if all right, Johnny B comes across the line, all right, we need to know where Johnny B is going. Once Johnny B gets established, Johnny B does his thing and he lives his life. Well, I'm not saying I think we need more of an Ellis Island type of thing. Not necessarily saying we need to ship people to islands. I'm just saying like that system of, hey, you
I
come here, we're checking you out. You seem to, check the boxes. You don't have any past that we can really find. You come across as okay. All right.
but see,
Welcome in the front door.
but that's great for immigrants. These people are not immigrants. They are refugees. So it's a completely different world. You are getting up in the middle of the night because you are scared of the police. You are scared of gangs, right? Look at the dictator we support in El Salvador, right? So that's why I say, and what's it say on the Statue of Liberty? Give us you're poor, you're tired, you're weak, you're cold, you're hungry. We have the ability to be the best country in the world. To date, we have one of the greatest pieces of paper written down. We need to make it for everybody, right? We're taking away women's rights. We're putting troops on the ground. For profit prisons are skyrocketing. And because we're a racist and fascist country right now, I don't even think that like these people, these MAGAs that voted for Trump, they have no foresight. Like you do understand that next year there's going to be a famine in this country, right?
Yeah, it's been coming for a while.
Right. But there's going to be a famine because the people who harvest the crops, the people who plant the crops, the people who get it to market are in concentration camps. And that those crops are rotting on the fields.
Yeah.
He's not gonna but you know what? Donald Trump's gonna eat.
Yeah, for sure.
He's not gonna give a shit. It's the working class that continually suffer. And if we are the best country in the world, why don't we have an education system that's number one, hands down, that the world can see and be like, clearly that's number one. Why don't we have a healthcare system? We have the best healthcare. Yes, this country, we have cutting edge technology. That's awesome. It would be rad if you and I had access to it. It would be amazing if you and I had access to the
Well,
same healthcare that Donald Trump
the
has.
the problem with our healthcare system, and I did a whole probably 20-minute episode on this and published it, is it's not like the word access is always thrown around. The access is there if you have the money. The
We have
problem
full
is the problem is the money. And the problem is our healthcare system is not capitalistic by any measure. When you look at the very basic premise of capitalism, our healthcare system is the complete opposite. It's controlled.
Let me ask
They
you this.
regulate the players.
Well, for example, Oregon has shown that we have healthcare. So when I talk about great healthcare system, let me say first and foremost that I am blessed to live where I live. For example, what's your minimum wage there?
Oh gosh, I believe they're like 12 or 13 bucks an hour, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay, I talk to people every day that live in states that have like minimum wage of like single digits. And I am blown away by that, right? Because I think here it's at like 15, 16 bucks an hour. Excuse me, most jobs hire at 20 bucks an hour to be competitive. So you can get a job here flipping burgers at 20 bucks an hour. Here in Oregon, we have free education. Here in Oregon, we have free healthcare that up till I believe $80,000 qualify for the Oregon Health Plan. So, for example, I talked about 4 years ago, I had a heart attack. I walked away with that without one bill. I know I have a good friend who needed dental implants. He got his dental implants at cost. My partner is getting medical grade Botox treatments for migraines without cost. So we're showing that it can be done and we just need to do it everywhere, right? This is I wrongly get called a communist, this, that, and the other, whatevs. But everything I fight for, we fight for all Americans.
Yeah, and I'm totally for systems like that at a state level. If the state wants, if the citizens of that state say, hey, you know what, we want to do what you're doing, 1000% behind it. I will just never be a fan of the federal government doing it because they can't even agree to pay the light bill, let alone putting them in charge of my health care.
Right.
And that's where I differ probably from most people. And I advocate a hybrid system. I believe if your employer is they want to be big spenders and give you some kind of crazy luxury plan where you get, I don't know, premium this instead of just the basics, hey, go for it. But everybody should also have access to the same basic needs. And again, that boils down to cost. So in Michigan, I don't know Oregon because I don't obviously know the state in
Yeah.
detail. But in Michigan, they have an issue where, let's say you're a billionaire and you're like, you know what, I can make a killing opening up a cancer center. Bad choice of words, but I can make a lot of money. But I already own a healthcare system. Well, in Michigan, depending on the situation, you'd have to eliminate beds from your healthcare system in order to open up that cancer center because you're limited in the number of beds you can have. There's a limited number of certain hospital systems. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, like, well, no wonder prices are high everywhere because the government, you can't just sit there and go, I've got the money. I'm going to hire the best people to do the job that are doctors qualified. you don't have that right in healthcare. You don't have that ability.
I mean, I don't even have that knowledge, to be honest with you, but what I do know is, like I said, I live in a system that can be emulated and replicated.
Yeah, for sure.
I advocate for a system more of a European model because, like we see the German healthcare system,
Yeah,
right?
hybrid.
We see that the German worker makes more money, has more days off, is happier, healthier, and better educated than the American worker. We are capable of doing these things. I'm an abolitionist, which means that I believe most of the things that people are in jail for shouldn't be in jail for because we're not I'm not talking the prison system, I'm talking the county system. The county system is a holding pen in every county for people awaiting or currently going through the trial system. Okay? I think that the only people that should be in confines as they go through that system are sex offenders and murderers. Okay? Because we live in a country where a piece of paper says we are innocent until proven guilty. Every person of color ever caught up in the system knows the score, and that is you're guilty until proven innocent. That's fucked up. That has to change.
Yeah, 1,000%. I would.
We have county systems that charge inmates for the pleasure of being there.
Yeah, it's
And if they cannot make their payments, then they don't get their commissary, right? So we need to get rid of that for everybody. When we say that we want housing for people, I don't know what people mean. I don't mean a super palatial 5-bedroom house for everybody, but a studio apartment, we can do that. If we're the best country in the world, then let's make it the best country in the world, right? Let's make it so everybody benefits because if we have free education and you are educated and you want to be a doctor and you do all the hard work to be a doctor, how does that harm my country?
right.
Seems to me
No, that's
seems to make my community better. There's another doctor there, right? There's another guy giving back. There's another guy making lots of money buying stuff in the stores, helping people out, whatever.
oh, yeah, I agree with that. Definitely in principle, I agree with that. Most
I
definitely.
mean, we should be like we're like we've got these corporations that are really investing in self-driving cars. Being a professional driver is the number one job of people without college education, men especially. So, the number one job, and we are investing billions of dollars in self-driving cars. And yet, we are not investing billions of dollars in re-educating that whole section of the workforce,
Right.
giving them grants to go be IT workers, continued ways of being able to raise their family and bring home a check and work hard.
No, I mean, that's, when it comes to some of these companies, I think back to the Eisenhower system, right? How he did things. Taxes were high, but if you put that money back into America, your taxes were significantly lowered if you were wealthy, if you reinvested into your country. And that's what produced such a big middle class because they were like, well, if financially it makes sense to invest here. And the problem is a lot of modern GOP people go, well, we should just give them tax breaks to begin with. I'm okay with tax breaks, but there's got to be something that comes with it. I'm not just going to give you a tax break because you exist as a company.
Right? But see, I think we're beyond that. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that So look, I am no longer at a place where I can sit at a table with those that want to harm me and those that celebrate the harm of me and my people. We are the victims of the largest genocide in history. After the first 100 years of contact, 100 million of us died in North and South America. We are no longer at a place, to me, unfortunately, where politics matters. I don't believe we can vote ourselves out of this. I know that you don't tear down a rose garden and build a $200 million fucking ballroom because you're planning on moving. So, I mean, I'm not advocating for a civil war. I'm advocating for civil defense. And I think that once we get through this period, then we can, because, yeah, I like that idea. Invest in your country. That's a great idea, right? Let's celebrate our teachers. right? Let's celebrate our people that are building houses. Let's celebrate these people that are teaching people how to read. Let's celebrate people giving citizenship classes, right? Because they're making great Americans supposedly, right? They're teaching the way. Let's not just celebrate the military. That doesn't bring anything good, right? Would you rather see a teacher at your country's shores or armed troops?
Yeah, I
Which one
just
are you?
rather for me, I don't definitely don't want to see armed troops in my city, if I don't have to. If it, I mean,
And you
I
might.
guess things came down to a point where I didn't have a choice. I mean, it is what it is. But don't get me wrong. Me personally, I'm all for a civic response and a civil response to pretty much almost most situations, right? I personally can't do anything about the past. Nobody really can. But what we can do is take that founding document, take the principle of it, and remember that those men recognized that they weren't the greatest people on the planet. That's why they wrote it the way they wrote it. Some other people did try to pervert it, but over time it has changed, tried to,
We can't.
and it has changed. And, I think that that part is what we need to really like focus on going, okay, we can make it a better country for everybody that is here and take care of one another without shooting one another over basic things.
Hear you, and yes and no. I mean, okay, so like check it out. First of all, I think we need to realize that most of the founding fathers were slave owners. Quite honestly, their opinions on freedom to me don't matter because they didn't understand freedom. Okay? Because if you understood it, how dare you breed, trade, and sell and own other human beings? Okay? So, but with that said, a broken clock is also right twice a day. Okay. And I think I was just here earlier today, a few minutes ago, saying that I believe that the Constitution is one of the greatest pieces of papers and one of the greatest ideas ever created, written by a bunch of slave owners, right? But yes, we need to make it for everyone.
Oh, yeah,
And we
1,000% in
make it
agreement.
for everyone, not by taking rights away, but by expanding them, right? We make it inclusive for everyone, even the people that challenge our ideals and are unpalatable to us personally.
Right?
But
Yeah,
but unfortunately, sir, we are also at a time where people want to harm us. Me as a leftist, I have a sign on my door now that lets the government know to not please kick in my door. I have a dog. My dog is not a threat. And I will cooperate. That's where I'm at, bro. I have to live with that sign on my door because I'm afraid that they're gonna kick in my door in the middle of the night and my dog's gonna go ape shit.
yeah. I mean, like I said, that's your situation over there is far different than unfortunately,
But it's
it's
coming to you guys too. See,
yeah,
we are the front line. If we fold, you guys fold. So while everybody wants to talk shit about the handful of protesters that are down in Portland, downtown across the river from me, right now, I'm only about like a mile and a half opposite side of the river from the ice facility. They're holding it down for all of us.
well, with the protesters, it's the ironic part of you said. So I did an episode with a guy from I think it was Crowdsource, I believe was the name of the company. His name's Adam Swartz, CEO, the biggest paid protest company on the planet. Now no, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying what's happening there is right, because he even said that they're not involved in that type of stuff. He even said that. He's like, no, we're not, but he has said some of the things, and he even said both on the left and the right that these billionaires and a lot of these wealthier people pay for certain things to get, like there's people that are probably wealthy people on the right that pay for certain things, get their people riled up, and vice versa.
Okay,
And
so
he's
where that
he's
happens is that like we'll look at the No Kings event, okay, or we look at January 20th, right? That yes, people get bussed in there,
Mhm.
right? All kinds of right wingers wanted to go. Let me say, from 2016 to 2020, I was on the streets in Portland. I have never, ever, ever once seen Heard of any paid activists. And I'm going to tell you why. They're unreliable.
Oh yeah.
You cannot trust them. So why would we have them? Because when I march, my people around me are trustworthy. They're not gonna let me be stupid. I'm not gonna let them be stupid. We're gonna hold on. We're gonna watch each other. We all know each other. Why would we ever just want a group of strangers in with us? We wouldn't.
No, and I know from like a situation like yours that that's not the case. So you can clearly see that. I mean, any reasonable person would spend 3 seconds on Google and figure that part out.
Right? So that's the point. So, like, I don't believe it. Like, I've talked to organizers around the country, around the world, and in 20 odd years, I have never, ever, I hear about paid protesters, right?
I was in the same boat as you until I interviewed and seen some of the stuff myself. And he even turned down recently a $20 million contract for a protest that would have created some possible violence.
Well, that's
And
interesting.
but he even admitted in his we were in the beginning that when he had first started his company, I think it was back 2012, 13, I forget which one it was, that they did have some individuals that were not that he probably wouldn't hire now to represent his company, like on the streets.
Interesting. I've never seen that.
Yeah, look up the company if you ever get the time, because I know you're a busy man just like
What's their
myself.
name?
Crowdsource. Ad,
Crowdsource.
yep, Adam Swart. He was a really nice guy, and he's very balanced too. He's not one way or the other. I mean, he probably definitely goes with whoever's cutting the check.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That
uh,
that
but the one thing that he's very against is he will not engage in political violence. Like he will not take money to assault someone else.
Okay, so I am kind of running out of time here,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but I do kind of want to talk about that for a minute. So do you know what Martin Luther King Jr. said about a riot, right?
The, elaborate. Maybe I'm not thinking the same thing you are.
Maybe, I hope so. He said that the riot is the voice of the unheard.
Yes, yes, yes.
So if people are rioting, we need to look at the nuance because nuance matters. Okay? And people are rioting because every day prices are rising.
Yes.
Every day it is getting harder to be alive, and your groceries and your dollars get less at the store. And we are seeing record breaking profits by companies across the board.
Mhm.
And people are tired. People are tired of worrying about their safety, left or right.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
People want their kids to be safe. People want job security. People want healthcare. I know somebody who recently found out that they have to have a lung transplant. They might not make it to December, and their medicine in the meantime has gone up 100% due to tariffs. And you would think, well, holy shit, if you might check out in December, you're not working. Not in this country.
Yeah, probably. I
Person's
mean,
wor-
that's
that person's working 50-hour weeks right now.
you know, a- and with that, that is more of a I would say definitely at a state level issue. I can speak on that from personal experience. My father had gotten cancer and it was terminal. And in Michigan, it is if you have terminal cancer or anything of that nature, you're automatically on disability. All everything's covered. And that was actually passed by a Republican governor.
So, yeah, so what I'm saying is, like, people want to say violence. People want to say this, that, and the other. And unfortunately, it's not. It's because these greedy people have bamboozled all of us. Okay? Are you familiar with Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Okay. I speak a lot in sports analogies, drives my friends crazy, and Lord of the Ring analogies, which drives me crazy. This is, oh my God. So what I look at now is this is the battle for Helm's Deep. It's not the final battle. It's the big battle. And I think a lot of people that I know, that you know, unfortunately, a lot of people in this country are going to get hurt by the state for standing up for what it is to be American. And it's scary. But we got to
Yeah.
remember Helm's Deep has never fallen when defended by men, right? Never has Helm's Deep fallen. And what? They battled all night and won. And then you got to go what? Then you got to go to the gates of Mordor and fight the greed and the corruption, because this race issue that they are using so well to bamboozle us, and they're doing a great job. They got race laws. They are doing a great job. But it's just surface, and the true root are the evil motherfuckers that want to control you, me, that don't care about America, that sold our country out for a plane and continuously sell our country out for a drug company.
Yeah, I can definitely understand where you're coming from in that way. I still, I still have hope for America's future just based on some of the research that I've done on Gen Z. I think that Gen Z's version of conservatism is not the version of conservatism that you and I think of. Their version is a whole lot more liberal. Yeah, and they're what I mean is they're more open. They're
Yeah,
not
no,
so.
even in this country, there is a media collage on what's happened in Madagascar with the Gen Z revolution that happened there. Gen Z flipped the government for clean water and for, good jobs. We see in Tibet, the same thing happened there. And there's a kibosh by these companies that support fascism. And why did they do it in Tibet? Because they wanted an end to nepotism and electricity, right?
Right.
Big business nepotism. And so they're not going to put that shit on here for us because we're going to get ideas. Last thing, I'm going to leave you with this, and then I got to go. I'm a little bit older. I don't know how old you are. How old are you?
Almost 41.
Okay, so we're almost over the same age. I'm a little bit older than you. So you might have been about 8 or 10 when it happened. So I remember the fall of communism, right? I remember watching the news, and I remember that Jesus Jones song right here, right now, right? That was all about that fall of communism and how great and wonderful the world was going to be. People got tired of secret police.
Yes.
People got tired of gulags and rats in their neighborhood. So
Yes, they
do
did.
you remember how communism fell? It started with a group in Poland called Solidarity that has since become different things. But they were just standing in the streets,
Yes.
standing quietly in East Germany, every town and every village, in Poland, in Czechoslovakia, what was formerly known as Yugoslavia as well, right?
Oh yeah.
So all I want to, in closing with, is that we can have this great, amazing place that's for every one of us. And we can be free, and we can start to right the wrongs of our sins that we never had a chance to right.
No,
And we can make this a place that it should be for everyone.
and I think even though I think all sides definitely have different versions of how they want to get there and what it looks like, I think in the end everybody wants the same thing to a degree. We all want to say we want to be able to send our kids to school. All those things, right? In principle. And,
This could get so good. I do.
I know. Yeah, no, I'm wrapping up.
I hope you have me back. I hope you
Oh
have me
yeah,
back. I would love to come back and continue, because we're just getting to the surface, right? We could do like 4 or 5 hours on this. So, but
oh, yeah,
unfortunately, sir, it's 3:10. I do have to go. I have
yeah.
another about 10 minutes that I have to make.
All right, I
And
appreciate you coming on, Lewis.
thank you so much. Please send me the link when you're
Will do.
ready to, and please have me back. I would love to come back.
Would love to have you back on. All right, thank you, Lewis. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.